there's a phrase that's prompted me to reflect on this update on what I'm going to talk about, and that is, don't let perfect be the enemy of good. That's something I personally struggle with a lot. So I play a lot of video games. They're a hobby I enjoy, but I do also struggle with them, especially genres that I love. So I've always struggled to multitask in RTSs, I've always struggled to aim in FPSs, and for the life of me, as much as I love them, I can't nail down the kind of rhythm and memorization needed to excel at fighting games. Because of this, putting gameplay online, while it's really fun, is also a little bit intimidating. If you've watched the StarCraft Let's Plays, you'll be aware that on some missions it opens up with me saying that I've messed up and I've restarted. Even if that wasn't necessary to share, I was cautious about, not being honest about it. However, I was also cautious about showing me making a mess of a section of gameplay. And as a result, as I've learned to become more personally resilient, I've realised that's maybe not the most productive way to deal with those kind of minor failures. In the upcoming Armada missions, I don't have many restarts. I do end up replaying some missions, but that's because something goes wrong with the footage. But I have started to come into minor roadblocks with some of the Romulan missions. Still been able to complete them, but one or two times where I've wanted to go back and redo something. In the second mission I recorded, I made a pretty big error, but I instead made the decision to roll with it. And so part of the learning process around making Let's Plays is learning what mistakes to share and what mistakes to remove, and also learning that committing to sharing certain mistakes can actually produce something a little bit more interesting. There are mistakes that are worth removing. Stuff like stumbling over my words in intros and outros doesn't really add anything to the overall experience, it just ruins the flow. But in terms of the actual in-game gameplay, part of playing games is adapting to novel situations and rolling with mistakes that happen. So I think I want to be a little less cautious, deliberately less cautious about sharing some of those mistakes. That doesn't mean everything's going to be completely, utterly unedited or completely unvarnished. There will be times when maybe a mistake is just a boring mistake, so I'll kind of skip through it or, cut out some of the stuff that's less interesting to do with it. But why not lean into sharing some of the sort of goofs and gaffs, especially when they honestly could be entertaining. And as I was thinking about it, I realised that there are a lot of professional RTS players or, semi-professional players who leave their mistakes in their playthroughs as single-player missions, and they're not self-conscious about that. They're very good at adapting and going, okay, I made that mistake, let's try it again. And I feel that's a healthy attitude, and if they're comfortable sharing that, as a relatively casual player myself, I really shouldn't be intimidated with making those kinds of mistakes and rolling with them. Generally, try and be open to feedback as well. So, for example, I remember a comment on my StarCraft Let's Play that I was a little bit passive. So I want to try and learn from that and be a bit more active when I'm playing other RTSs. That might actually result in me making more mistakes, but I think it could also be interesting, to have that learning journey recorded. Corny as saying learning journey sounds. I do think there's merit to that. Now, obviously, if a comment is just rude or it's kind of blatant trolling, I'm going to delete it. But if it's, done in good faith, I really don't see any harm in embracing kind of any silly little mistakes I made and kind of responding, in good humour or openly to any minor pieces of feedback as well. So yeah, I'm going to try and worry a little bit less about looking occasionally silly or making a mistake because, as I said at the top, it's not worth letting perfect be the enemy of good.